my own assumption is it won't happen until another set of mass-casualty terrorist atrocities occur, and there'll be a lot of people who'll die, and then people will realize that you can't have open borders welcoming in people who hate you. Not everybody hates us who comes in, but a large number do, and there's no price to pay for hating the country you're in if you move to the West. And so I'm afraid, yes, that's my rather bleak prognosis. Terrorism is about the only thing that seems to wake anyone up.
All right, Douglas Murray, do we get right into democracies and death cults, or do you want to talk about other things first?
I'm in your hands, Dave Rubin.
Well, why don't we start with this? We're at the ARC conference right now. It just kicked off this morning. And obviously, they're talking about democracies, and there's a subtext of death cults that are doing some damage to democracies at the moment. But when I tweeted that I was in London yesterday, almost every response said London Stan in it.
Huh.
I just said I'm here in London, and almost every response said London Stan. You've been talking about all of this for a long time. Strange Death of Europe, and at least a decade you've been on all of this. What is going on in this country and in this city specifically? And then we'll dive into some of the stuff in the book.
Well, more than a decade ago, I mentioned in an article that London, the place we're sitting in, had effectively become a foreign city, and I took a certain amount of flack for saying that, but nevertheless, I believe it to be true. Events in the years since have only furthered that, the justification for that claim. A recent study found that 40% of people living in London are foreign-born, and there's lots of ways of passing that. One is to say, well, that's just great. It's a international city. But I'm not really sure we've got the brightest and the best from around the world. And we certainly haven't got the people we needed the most. Driving here this morning, I can't say that I'm thrilled when I drive through the wasteland of what the Luftwaffe managed to achieve in the 1940s and what post-war planners achieved after that. I can't say I'm thrilled when I drive down what remains of the streets in this wasteland of East London, and I see from the lampposts big signs saying, "Trust Allah, pay your zakat." Not planning to do either of those things in the near future. But yes, I mean, I think that post-war immigration policy and much more has led us to a place I've warned about for 20, 25 years now. And all the warnings were not heeded, and everything's got worse.
So in that the warnings weren't heeded, and in that it seemingly has gotten worse. How do you get out of this? I mean, how does this country get out of this? Not just this city, how does this country get out of this? In some sense, that's what this conference is about, and that's what you're writing about.
Yes, I mean, it's one aspect of it. I think that there are some technical things that you need to do, and there's some deep substrate things you need to do. On the technical thing, it's just obvious is what our politicians haven't done, and that's to stop the mass migration of people from the developing world who are, among other things, largely non-skilled workers who we just don't need. We just don't need more of them. And we certainly don't need illegals who arrive by boat in the South Coast, something American viewers and listeners will know about and have heard about in their own context. Unfortunately, Except we're closing our borders, so that exactly. Means they're probably going to come here. The British borders just remain open, and you can just get on a boat from France and come in, and the British Coast Guards will pick you up, and all these young men from across the developing world come in with no skills, and they'll all be a drain on the welfare state, and they'll all cost taxpayers, and yet we have politicians in the UK who all pretend that these are just, heart surgeons and computer programmers who we can't do without and who are going to pay their way. And that's just flat out a lie. And but I think there's other things as well. I think that we've had, as I said, in the Strange Death of Europe, this very strange period in which we've said for many decades that a place like Britain is basically somewhere that could be the home for the whole world. And I don't buy that. I think that Britain is a country with a very rich culture. It took a long time to meld Britain together between four nations, and it's been pulled apart in the process of about 2 generations. But, that can be rescued and turned around, but it would simply require political will and political leadership, and we have neither of those things in this country.
Is there any sense that it can actually? I mean, I know intellectually the idea of closing borders and
repatriation of people,
deporting, et cetera. I understand that, but I mean, do you think it actually can be done? I mean, is there any of the structure that could do that?
No, my own assumption is it won't happen until another set of mass-casualty terrorist atrocities occur, and there'll be a lot of people who'll die, and then people will realize that you can't have open borders welcoming in people who hate you. Not everybody hates us who comes in, but a large number do, and there's no price to pay for hating the country you're in if you move to the West. And so I'm afraid, yes, that's my rather bleak prognosis. Terrorism is about the only thing that seems to wake anyone up. And even then,
it does. I mean, we had a massive terrorist attack in New Orleans on New Year's Day, and nobody talked about it 2 days later in America.
Yes. Take the Southport stabbings, which occurred last summer in a town in the north of England. A son of Rwandan immigrants goes on a knifing spree at a Taylor Swift-themed dance party for young girls, stabs 3 under 10 girls to death repeatedly, many others. And the authorities, the government, much of the media, they say it's a man from Wales. And in some ways they were right, but this wasn't just some maniac Welshman. We have the right to know, I think, if girls are being stabbed to death at dance classes. We have the right to know how that person is here, how his family are here, and exactly what they brought to Britain. But the Labour government and others, as you know, just say, shut up, don't talk about it. And if you even speculate on the motives, you'll go to prison much faster than the killer.
What do you think the intentions of the Labour government are? But it's not just the Labour government, because you've had governments all over the place that seemingly make everything worse.
There were 14 years of very inept Conservative rule, which is going to take a while for the Conservative Party to get over, reputationally. And then, the Labour government effectively is, I think it'll prove totally incapable of doing almost anything. But they have shown no inclination to shut the borders or deport those who shouldn't be here. And what they do seem to be wanting to do, and this was most evident after Southport, is to simply say the public mustn't notice what is being done to them. And, I'm afraid I foresee huge problems down the road from this.
If you're craving more honest and thoughtful conversations about politics, check out our politics playlist right here. And if you don't want to miss any future videos, make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell.